Hey guys, welcome once again to MindTalk, a safe space where we talk about mental health. And this season, we are focusing on bipolar disorder. If you have been tuning into my previous episodes, I would like to say welcome back and thanks for joining us once again. And if this is your first time, I would like to welcome you and hope that this information can be beneficial to you in some moment in the future. So before I start, I just want to make a disclaimer that this podcast is not intended to diagnose you or anyone that you may know. If you believe that you relate to anything within this podcast, it is advised that you seek medical attention. Okay, so in the last few episodes, we sat with clinical and forensic traumatologist Mr. Hanif E.A. Benjamin, and he gave us a very insightful description of what bipolar disorder is. He explained to us that bipolar disorder comes in two forms, bipolar 1 and bipolar 2, where bipolar 1 is where you have a manic episode. A manic episode is basically like a hyperactive episode where it has symptoms like abnormal, upbeat and jumpy reactions, increased activity, agitation, etc. And that is then followed by a depressive episode, a major depressive episode where you feel sadness, you feel down, you feel demotivated to do certain things, you isolate yourself. And then after there's bipolar 2, where there's mostly depressive episodes and probably one hypomanic episode, which is a less severe episode than the manic episode. But you never really had like a real manic episode in bipolar 2. So what I want to talk about today is the prodromal stages of bipolar disorder. And today my source is from a psychiatrist, Dr. Tracy Marks. She's a psychiatrist with over 20 years of experience, and I follow her YouTube channel, which is about mental health issues and self-improvement. And I really find her to have very credible and easy, comprehensible content on mental health, especially bipolar disorder. And she explains the symptoms of these disorders and how you can manage your disorder on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so according to Dr. Marks, the prodromal period or stage is basically like the precursor to a severe manic episode or depressive episode. So it's like the quiet before the storm. That's basically how she explained it in her video. So we need to remember that bipolar disorder is progressive and it takes momentum to build up into a severe episode, whether it's manic or depression. Alright, and in her video, which she more focused on the prodromal stage of mania, she explained that it is beneficial to identify a prodromal stage to actually reduce the severity of the upcoming manic episode or to prevent it altogether, right? And in the video she identified 3 major signs for manic prodrome, which is mania, prodromal, which is a prodromal stage before a manic episode, right? And she identified symptoms that someone who is manic, who experienced manic episode, who is bipolar 1, what they actually go through. And some of those symptoms are elevated mood, decreased need for sleep, and increased activity. And I am going to go through those symptoms so you can get a better understanding on what a prodromal episode is like opposed to an actual manic episode. So firstly, the elevated moods. Well, the elevated moods is actually is a feeling of invincibility or audacity or even confidence. So in this mood, you're not manic, but you're feeling confident. You're doing things that you won't usually do. You get the confidence to speak to someone that you won't really speak to, or you're feeling very confident in yourself to do things and put yourself out there, things that you normally wouldn't do. Now, before an actual episode, this is one of the major signs that someone with bipolar 1 can exhibit. And it's almost like a euphoric sensation. Your life is feeling good, your life is feeling great. And how you can tell the difference between you just being you and this feeling of almost euphoria, because it's not really euphoria, you're just feeling, you're in this elevated mood rather, is because this mood usually comes on after a depressive mood. And when I say after, almost immediately, like your mood just switch like a light bulb. And you wouldn't really, it's really hard to identify, because one who is bipolar and who isn't aware of the sudden switch will think that, okay, well, everything is just normal, I am just normal, I am just good, and I'm just happy. But this could actually be the prodromal stage of a serious manic episode. And another symptom is decreased sleep. So this is the inability to actually sleep. And a regular person who has bipolar disorder, they actually do have trouble with sleep on the whole. You are recommended to get between 7 to 9 hours of sleep, and someone who has bipolar disorder, they struggle to even get 6 hours sometimes, right? And especially with bipolar 1. And the prodromal stage with bipolar, when associated with decreased sleep, is that you actually don't actually feel like sleeping. Like, you will be up at night doing a lot of things, whether it is watching movies or going on YouTube, or all of a sudden you have interest in doing some work for school or for actually a job at late night, and you're not aware of the time because you're not actually feeling sleepy. That is another symptom of the prodromal stage, which is decreased sleep. And the final symptom, which Dr. Marks described, is increased activity. Now, increased activity is similar to the elevated mood, where you feel invincible and confident and happy. However, the increased activity is more with movement. With increased activity, you can feel like really jittery. You can feel having more interest in work and school, like, and a hyperfixation. So pacing up and down, unable to sit still. That is when you're actually more hyperactive than usual, but not to the effect of a manic episode. Also, a symptom of increased activity is actually hypersexuality, where you can have unusual sexual urges and be inclined to act on those sexual urges, which can actually put you in some serious regrettable situations that you really wouldn't want to be in. So those are basically the three symptoms of the prodromal mania stages, And for the prodromal stage for a major depressive episode, I actually did some research and I found some symptoms. On a website, National Library of Medicine, where basically they said that the prodrome for depression presents itself in the form of irritability, anxiety, sleep problems similar to the manic prodrome stage, fatigability. So basically, irritability is like the major symptom of a prodromal stage with regards to a major depressive episode. And well, again, I'm going to disclose that I have been diagnosed with bipolar 2, which is the type that is associated with depression, and I've never really been aware of my symptoms, and after doing my research on this topic, I didn't even know of the prodromal stage, and I wasn't aware of these symptoms that leads to one of my major depressive episodes. And from viewing the symptoms, I can actually now look back and identify where my prodromal stage was. Irritability, that is one of my major symptoms, and it is actually one of the symptoms that actually began my depressive stages. Another symptom I can identify is actually anxiety. I used to have a lot of anxious moments along with the irritability and fatigability as well. So before one of my depressive episodes, I would have difficulty getting up in the morning to get to work. If I had classes, it would be a real struggle. And it's not like I was feeling depressed, but I was just really feeling like tired. And well, to get to work, this is early in the morning after I woke up from sleeping, and it would just be like I'm already tired of the day. I'm already tired of what is to come. So basically that is how my fatigability used to be. I would be tired of what is to come already. Like mentally, my mind isn't ready for it, and it will be difficult for me to actually get out of bed in the morning. And well, along with that, there's the irritability and the anxiety, and that would just make me feel really overwhelmed. Then sometimes weeks or months later, I would go into my depressive stage, which I will talk about in another episode. So I never really had issues with sleep because, to be honest, like, sleep was my friend, and I would have difficulty even getting out of bed. So sleep wasn't really a problem for me. But if I can actually identify the prodromal stage of my depressive episode, it would be irritability, anxiety, and fatigability. So going back to Dr. Marx's video on managing the prodromal stages when you identify these symptoms, is to, well, for manic basically, and I really don't want to I don't want us to use this for the depressive episodes, because I didn't really get any information on how to manage the prodromal stage for depression or bipolar type 2. But with regards to the manic prodromal stage, Dr. Marx recommended that you make a documentation after you had your episode. So after your episode, you look back, because it's only in retrospect you can identify the prodromal stage. So after an episode, you look back and you take note of your symptoms prior to your manic episode. And actually, I believe that you can use this method. I actually believe that you can use this method with regards to the depressive episode as well, because it is identifying your behavior prior to the major episode. So after taking note of your prodromal stages, after you identify them and you took note of it, this is in the form of actually writing it down, so you can always have something to look back on to your behavioral patterns when you are having another prodromal episode. And you can also talk to your doctor or have someone close by, a friend or a loved one, and explain to them your symptoms. And in this way, they can actually identify your symptoms to you when you're in another prodromal stage, and you can prepare yourself for the major episode. Remember, bipolar disorder is a progressive illness, and it can take weeks or sometimes months for it to develop into a severe episode. So this is a good strategy for you to identify the upcoming severe episodes and prepare yourself for when it happens. And that's all we have today. I would like to thank you for tuning in once again to another episode of MindTalk. Remember to subscribe to the channel and like the button if this episode was actually helpful to you. And don't forget to follow our Instagram page, which is mindtalk.tt, where you can see teasers for the upcoming episodes. Also, more content on bipolar disorder. So until next time, I'd like to thank you again for tuning in, and stay safe and stay happy. Goodbye.